Hey everybody, today I just wanted to show you a quick, everyday, super wearable look, but that incorporates some cool tones. I feel like cool tones can be really scary to people, and the only time that people seem to gravitate towards cool tones is when they're doing like a really dramatic smoky eye, and I feel like that's not necessary. You can really easily wear cool tones in your everyday makeup and make them look super natural and wearable and just really good. So that's what I wanted to do today. We're gonna run through the entire look. And yeah, to start off today, I'm actually going to skip foundation altogether. This is something that I do on an everyday basis very often because I just feel like when I'm at work for, 10-12 hours, it wears so much better when I don't have foundation all over. Plus it saves you so much time. So I'm going to take the Catrice Liquid Camouflage Concealer. Mine's in the shade 005, which is light natural. I'm using this one because it is a little bit brighter than my skin tone, but it's not much different, so it's not gonna look weird against my bare skin. And I'm going to use this on the centers of my face. So I'll take it along the chin, a little bit on the upper lip, nose, and then I only take a tiny bit on the center of my forehead just because I don't want it reaching up in these lines where it could crease. Then I think I'll blend that out to start, and then we'll come back to the eyes. To blend that out, I'm going to use my IT Cosmetics Heavenly Luxe brush number 7, and I'm going to use this big fluffy side actually, just because this is quicker. If you don't feel comfortable skipping your foundation, that's totally fine. You can just keep wearing it like normal. This is just what I've been doing, and I feel like even though you can see my imperfections and stuff like that, it looks so much better throughout the day. So I've really been liking it, but again, you do whatever you want. I turned my camera a little bit so you can't see all of the junk that's over here. So hopefully I'm like centered and everything. Okay, before we go under the eyes, I'm just going to lay down a little bit more of this concealer on the spots that I really hate, which are right here. This guy is like super angry today. I'll cover this one a little, and this guy over here, a little bit right there. So you can see still a lot of my redness out in this area, but that doesn't bother me at all. If you want, you could take a little bit of concealer there, or again, just wear your foundation. No big deal. While that's sitting, I'm just going to put a little bit of this concealer under my eyes. Not much to start because you can always add more, and it's better to just use less product because it ends up looking more natural in the end. So I'm gonna blend this under my eyes. I'm going to take a little bit of the excess onto my eyelid, but not much. I don't need like a ton of canceling out of the discoloration on my eyes today. So just a little bit. Okay, there's a tiny bit of redness still just right here on the inner parts of my cheek. I'm going to cover up again. For these spots down here, I'm just going to blend out with my fingertip. I've just found that that's the best way to keep the coverage exactly where I want it. Okay, now I'm only going to use a little tiny bit of translucent powder just right under my eyes, and I'll do a little bit on my lids as well. And that should be good. The other thing you can do if you want to just use concealer but you need a little bit of extra coverage like along your jawline or something like that is you can take a foundation powder. This is the CoverGirl Advanced Radiance Powder, and sweep it along the outsides of the face. This one is really good. I feel like it's fairly light coverage. I also really love the Healthy Powder from Physicians Formula. That one is amazing, like so natural looking but gives you so much coverage out of it. So I would recommend that one for sure. When I don't have on foundation, I don't like to use a lot of bronzer just because it can make my skin look really muddy, and since we don't have any other coverage here, it can accentuate some of my discoloration and that kind of stuff. So I like to be really light with the bronzer and just keep it like right back in this area if I am going to do it, which normally I would bring it down in here, but I'm keeping it like way back here for this kind of a look. Just helps to not draw attention to anything we don't want to. And then on the forehead, I don't have as much like discoloration or issues, so I can bring that one down a little bit further and it doesn't bother me. And then I'll definitely take some down the neck, but be careful along your jawline as well, because a lot of women, like I myself, break out a lot along my jawline. So if you have breakouts, the bronzer might draw some attention to them. So be careful with that if you are trying to apply bronzer down your neck. Okay, that much and we are done. Then since we're going in with some cool tones on the eyes, I thought we'd take more of a cool-ish toned neutral blush. This is the ColourPop blush in I Need Space. I always forget, I'm so sorry. It's one of the Kathleen Lights ones. It does have little dots in it. Those are just little air bubbles, but the color is super pretty overall. It kind of looks, I don't know, it's kind of rosy, kind of mauve, really pretty. This one is kind of shimmery though. If you don't like that, I'd go for like this Milani blush. This one's really pretty as well. This is in Tea Rose and this is completely matte, but it's a little bit more on the cool tone side as well. But this one's really, really pretty. I do like a lot of blush when I have no other makeup on, because I feel like it makes it look like I tried to put makeup on, you know, and that this color on my face is purposeful and not just my skin being crazy and ugly. I'm gonna take my powder brush though and softly blend out the front edges of that blush. And sometimes even if that's too much still in the front of my cheeks here, I'll just take that same foundation powder and just sweep some right there. Okay, now that we're done with the face, I think you could add highlighter and stuff if you want, but I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna leave it here for today. I'm gonna go into the eyes. One of the best cool tone eyeshadow palettes from the drugstore is this Milani Soft and Sultry palette. I've used this a bunch. I even use this color right here for my eyebrow powder lately, but this just has great options for you. You've got some nice kind of softer colors up here. If you want something more natural, you can really deepen things up down here. Some pretty shimmers, but overall it's just a really, really good palette. To start, I'm gonna take this matte bone colored shade up here and kind of just set all over my lid, especially the inner corners. Since we didn't put too much concealer down there, that's really going to help to cancel out any discoloration and make sure that this inner corner is really nice and bright. And I'll also take a little bit kind of from the brow bone down. Now I'm going to take a fluffy blending brush. This one's from a Profusion palette, but any sort of like fluffy blending brush will do. And we're gonna start with this shade right here, which actually looks pretty light, but since we're going for a more natural look, we're gonna start on the softer side and we can add a little bit of depth if we want to. But I'm gonna pick up that shade and tap off the extra. I'm actually gonna start this right at the outer corner, like right by my lash line, and just sort of wiggle this back and forth. Not bringing it up into the crease, just right at my lash line. And even though this color looks really light, it definitely gives you some depth without being too crazy over the top. I think a lot of times when people think of cool tones, they think of either going super dark, like black, or gray, which you don't need to use a gray or go super, super dark to have a cool tone look. You can really use something that's cool tone but still fairly light and just gives you some depth and shadow, and it will look so, so nice. So I'm just wiggling that again, starting at the lash line. I'm bringing it up a little bit, but definitely not up as high as I normally would, like nowhere near my crease yet. And I'm just kind of building on that color. And you can see it is very soft, but we're going for something wearable, so you don't want it to be too crazy. Or if you do, that's great, but that's what I'm doing today. And you can just see the subtle amount of like definition that brought to my eyes. But now that that shade is in there, I'm going to slightly kind of bring it up into the crease, but I'm only bringing it in halfway, not bringing it all the way through the crease. I'm just buffing it mostly on this outer third, kind of bringing it in about halfway. I feel like a huge key to making something look natural and wearable is to start really low. Don't blow things out like crazy too much, and start lighter than you think you should. Because things can get dark super fast, where like this is totally enough pigment to count as your like outer corner shade, your transition shade, all the things. It's nice and defined, but still super soft. Okay, now that we have that on, before we deepen up anything anymore, I'm gonna go in with a lid shade, and we're gonna use this nice kind of bright white-ish lid shade. I'm gonna just pick this up on my finger And when I apply this, I'm going to kind of drag it out so that it's not super, super opaque. Which sounds kind of crazy because most of the time with like metallic shades, you want them to be like so bright and opaque. But for an everyday look, just a little bit of sparkle makes you look so much more awake and alive and put together. And you don't need it to be super dark or defined or crazy. I am obviously layering it up a little bit. Like I want that color to show, but we don't need it to be like so blinding. See, you can totally see that color there. It's giving me a little something, but it's nothing, you know, crazy. Once that's on, let's go back into that kind of more transition shade and almost just repeat what we did in the beginning. So starting at the lash line, I'm going to sort of wiggle that color in, and this is just going to help like blend the edges between that shimmer shade and this transition. And then I'll kind of take it up into the crease, just stopping about halfway in on the lid. Now I want to show you how you could just deepen it up a tiny bit if you were feeling like it. Take a dark, nice, cool tone brown like this guy right here on a little flat definer brush or like a smudger brush or something like that. And just put this right at the outer part of your lash line. Really pressing it into those lashes first, just about halfway across the lid, and then sort of like smoking it out a little bit. Make sure you go slow with this and keep it nice and low. And that just gives you a little bit of extra kind of subtle definition, but still keeping it super wearable. Now I'm gonna take that same color. This time I am using a little flat definer brush, and I'm gonna use this on the bottom lash line. If you don't want to go smoky, that's totally fine, but I'm just going to use this just on the outer third, just to give me a little bit of depth down there. Then taking a larger kind of blending brush, I'm going to go in with that transition shade that we were using and then just sort of smoke that out. I like to go all the way from inner to outer corner with this, but you can do whatever you want. Okay, the last thing I'm going to do is pop a little bit of this face highlight on my inner corner. This will just kind of help brighten things up a little bit, and it's a little bit brighter and more intense than the lid shade that we were using. If you wanted to make this even more natural, you could just skip the inner corner highlight altogether, or instead of using something so intense and metallic, you could also go in with like this matte bone shade again, and that will kind of make sure that things aren't getting too like crazy intense or metallic or anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to make sure there's no glitter fallout under my eyes. Don't see anything crazy. Okay, now I'm just gonna fill in my brows really quickly. Okay, those don't look great, but I am a lazy bum, so I think I'm about done with that. Now just throwing on a little bit of mascara. You can use whatever you want. If you like to apply lashes, you could. I wonder how many people actually wear lashes on an everyday basis, because I don't. But I know some people do, so I'm curious. Tell me down below if you use lashes in your everyday makeup or not. I just truly can't imagine what it would take for me to get good enough at putting on false lashes that I could wear them every day. Because it's hard to get them to like stick on there right and look even and all that. After I put on mascara, I just like to kind of check and make sure that I like how everything looks. The only thing I'll do, just because I feel like my jawline is breaking out so bad, is just add a little bit more of that foundation powder just along here. Maybe just a smidge on my forehead as well, just because it looks a little bit shinier than the rest of my skin. We don't need that. Do you guys remember my husband using this brush? He was like this. It was so soft and so nice. Okay guys, that is pretty much it. The only thing that we need is a lip, and the other way to make sure that your look just looks super natural is to just use a gloss. So this is a classic gloss. If you've never owned one of these, I would be super surprised. This is the NYX Butter Gloss, and this is in the shade Tiramisu, which is also just, the shade in itself is super popular. These are great. Okay, nice, just kind of nudie pink gloss, nothing crazy. And this look is so natural that you could really kind of use whatever. You could throw on a lip, you could even go with like a more bold dark lip and it would look really good. but I feel like this is the way to make it look the most wearable, like I said already. So yeah, this is my cool toned look. Hopefully you enjoyed. It is super natural, but I feel like these kind of shades and this kind of eye look can flatter anybody. And I feel like cool tones also just look super professional and mature and just very sexy, honestly. Hopefully this gives you some tips if you've been wanting to try out some cool tone shades in a nice wearable everyday kind of way. So yeah guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.